Okay, so I was single for a while and I was looking to date. And like most people, I figured the easiest and the most convenient way was to join a dating app. And like many other, I ended up disappointed. And this was actually my third time on and off the dating app. So I was curious as to why this was happening. And I did a little digging. And I found out all the reasons why dating apps suck, like gender disparity, algorithm bias, low success rates, burnout, upward social comparison, and many more. But I stumbled upon something really interesting. So I found this website called swipestats.io where you can actually visualize your own dating data. So you request your data from whatever dating site you're on, you upload it, and SwipeStats helps you visualize everything for you. And you can compare it with demographics around the world. It's pretty cool, right? And on the same website, I found people doing really cool stuff with that data. Like one person analyzed activity of 1,000 Tinder users, uncovering all sort of silly yet intriguing facts. Like they looked at how often people open the app, swiped, messages received, and even the top words used by men and women in their conversations. And while reading all of this, two stats really struck me. First, according to a blog co-authored by SwipeStats founders, women match with about 36% of the people they swipe right on, while men, on the other hand, match with only 1.8% of who they like. And a second study by a Journal of Evolutionary Psychological Sciences revealed that it takes about 57 matches for a single meetup and a staggering 285 matches for a romantic relationship to occur. Now, even if these numbers may vary, one thing is pretty clear: the odds are really low for both men and women to find a relationship on the apps. So, if that's the case, why do men keep coming back when they're barely getting any matches? And why do women keep returning even with the highest number of matches? Is it just loneliness or is it something deeper at play here? In this video, let's dive into why we are going back to these apps and what actually this might mean for us.
Swipe right, swipe right, swipe right.
Dating apps are by far the biggest waste of.
What about these apps make them addictive?
It's the gamification of.
Art and culture is the basis of any civilization or society that has ever existed, and they have the power to really influence every facet of the society.
ये तुम लोगों के नाम जपो में पहले सा आराम नहीं ये तुम लोगों के नाम जपो में पहले सा आराम नहीं इस जबरदस्ती के जय श्री राम में सब कुछ है बस राम नहीं
So, Jose Ortega, जो कि एक famous Spanish philosopher हैं, he once said, "Tell me what you pay attention to, and I'll tell you who you are." And if you closely see what a society pays attention to, you'll realize how a society thinks, breathes, and lives, and what essentially influences their society. And movies are a very important part of that.
हमें यहाँ से भागना ही होगा राज, हमें यहाँ से भागना ही होगा।
नहीं सिमरन, मैं तुम्हें यहाँ से भगाकर या चुरा कर ले जाने नहीं आया हूँ। भले ही मेरी पैदाइश इंग्लैंड में हुई हो, पर हूँ मैं हिंदुस्तानी। मैं यहाँ तुम्हें अपनी दुल्हन बनाने के लिए आया हूँ, और तुम्हें यहाँ से ले जाऊंगा तभी जब तुम्हारे बाबूजी खुद तुम्हारा हाथ मेरे हाथ में देंगे।
And भाई साहब, this movie had an impact. So much so कि अगर आज भी DDLJ कहीं किसी हॉल में लग जाए तो वो हाउसफुल ही होती है, हाउसफुल always. And DDLJ was not just a movie, it was a phenomenon. And I think we Indians emoted so heavily with this movie was because in the end it gave us our very own version of a modern love story that we could truly call ours. I mean, despite these modern flavor it had, it stayed rooted in our values and our tradition, and I think that made all the difference. And it wasn't just a romance on screen, it was essentially a reflection of what the Indian youth wanted all along. And I think that's why we loved it. Movies like DDLJ, Mohabbatein, Veer Zara, Kuch Hota Hai, Jab We Met, they all weren't just two people falling in love. They gave us hope. They made us believe that maybe, just maybe, we'd find a Raj or Simran someday. And on some level, मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि we still crave for that romance. The thrill of finding that one person and then living happily ever after. But the point is, did we all get what we wanted? Well, some of us did and some of us didn't. Many of us are still out there hoping that someday, that one day, our love stories will unfold. And we keep telling ourselves कि यार कोई तो चमत्कार होगा. And you know what? Sometimes just when we least expect it, it happens. The year is 2013 and Tinder launches in India. India and Tinder right swiped on each other. And within a year, the entire country was swiping left and right, trying to connect, trying to find that one special someone. And it's like we all jumped into this new way of dating overnight. A search for Raj and Simran went digital. Our love story is now being written with swipes and matches. Tinder saw massive success in India, and by the year 2015, India was the biggest market for Tinder in Asia. It empowered Indians to find the love of their life, and that too in a rather convenient fashion. Something that was a very daunting task a few years ago, now people can do it just sitting at their homes with a few swipes, a few clicks on their smartphone. Tinder came a host of dating platforms: Hinge, Bumble, OkCupid, Truly Madly, so on and so forth. And all of them just trying to solve one problem: how to make money. So that's a tall claim, but there's a reason why I say what I say. So hang on. See, finding love is difficult, and the amount of effort that you have to make just to find that one person is just enormous. And if you think about the entire process of finding love, there's basically 4 parts to it. First, you find someone, you approach them, you talk to them, you meet them, and if it all goes well, you get into a relationship, and if it doesn't, then the loop continues. And that's what makes the entire process emotionally draining. And that's where dating apps come in. If you look at it objectively, the sole purpose of a dating app is to give you a chance to love by helping you find someone, choose someone, helping you approach and talk to them. That's where the entire business of the dating apps is concentrated. So basically, if anyone can keep you following this loop on their platform, there's a shit ton of money to be made. Now, how do they do it? The easiest way to go about this is to simply make this a game, a real life game that's on your phone that you can play. But gamification is everywhere, right? We see it in our daily apps like Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, and even in our physical stores like malls, grocery stores, IKEA. It's everywhere. But what makes it so potent in the dating apps? And I think the answer lies in a quote by Scott Adams, where he says that nothing defines human beings better than their willingness to do irrational things in the pursuit of phenomenally unlikely payoffs. I mean, if you think about the choices we make when it comes to food, sex, or romantic love, our choices can be completely irrational because those choices are driven by our wants. And interestingly, romantic love triggers the exact same chemical reaction and reward system in our brains as when people take cocaine. And I'm sure if you've never tried cocaine, you might have been in love at some point of time in your life.
be it one-sided, two-sided. You know that euphoria you feel after being in love or being loved by somebody.
Now, if you compare this with what Mr. Adams said, the equation is pretty clear. People doing irrational things equates to unlikely payoffs. Now, imagine how much of a task it was to find someone, court, date, and get into a relationship. Approaching was difficult as there was a fear of rejection. Now, see how much easier these apps have made this for us. With a single swipe, you can express if you like or dislike someone without any visible form of rejection. And if you think about it, it removes fear. You feel safe while approaching someone. So, the irrational thing that you're doing here is essentially swiping in the hope that your unlikely payoff would be love. And the idea is mind blowing in itself if you think about it. Who knew that there would be a time when just by a touch on your device you could find love? But is it so addictive? Why do we keep swiping? Let me explain. So let's take a very small example. Imagine you want a laptop. There are two ways that you can get a laptop. First, you go to a shop, a salesperson shows you some laptops, maybe 10, 20, and you select the best one out of it, right? Second way to go about this is you go online where you search for the laptop's best specification, price range, scrolling through hundreds or even thousands of options, and then you maybe end up selecting one. And what do you think is the common part in both these processes? The common thing that you're doing here is searching. So you get the gist, right? The more choices you have, the more you keep looking and more time you spend. And here you're not just swiping for anything, it's love. Something we deeply need. So naturally you'll spend more time finding the right one. But then it couldn't be the only thing that keeps us coming back, right? Now, let's try to understand this with an example. Imagine your favorite food. Think about it. If I gave you your favorite food for like 30 days straight, are you going to like it? No, right? I mean, by the end of it, you'll end up hating it. But what if I change that duration to, let's say, thrice a week? Still no, right? Because at the end of it, you'll still get bored with it. Now, what if I told you you'll get this favorite food of yours twice a month, but then I won't tell you on which day or which date you'll get it. So what happens right now is that every single time that you go for your dinner or for your meal, you'd always go with a sense of anticipation and you look forward to your meal every day. So that's what it does, right? We humans love random rewards. And if you're swiping every day and then suddenly one day, boom, you get a match and here you are hooked, and all your so-called hard work of liking, swiping, commenting has paid off, right? So on a subconscious level you learn to see what promoted it and hence swipe. But here's the question: men get the least amount of likes or matches while women get the most, yet both keep coming back. Ideally, men should be frustrated with the lack of likes and women should find a match and leave the loop, right? But that doesn't happen. So why do we keep coming back? For men, it's a negative loop. Just the potential of a match is enough to keep them swiping. Even if the matches are far and few in between, there's the thought, what if the next one is the one? For women, on the other hand, it's a positive loop. Even if they don't get into a relationship, the chances of them getting a match on a dating platform is way higher than anywhere else. So they keep coming back too. To sum it up, it all starts with a desire for connection. You get stuck in the endless loop of swiping, and then there are random rewards that keep you hooked in anticipation. And once your brain learns this pattern, you keep coming back for more. If this isn't a game, then what is? But what does it mean for us, and how is it changing the way we see, or at least the way we look for relationships? The answer lies in our beginnings and evolution. We started off as tiny specks of dust, and slowly and gradually, through natural selection, evolved into human beings. And a very specific part of our natural selection defines human relationships to this day. And Darwin called this theory the theory of sexual selection. It says that we evolved not only for survival but also for mating advantages, because the key to survival was reproducing. And in this theory, two processes work interchangeably. First is intrasexual competition, where individuals of one gender compete among themselves for mating advantages. For example, men could compete to show who's the strongest and can protect their mates. Women, on the other hand, might compete to be seen as the most desirable. And the second one is preferential mate choice, where members of one gender agree on what is desirable in a mate and giving those traits a mating advantage. Essentially, they're building a consensus among themselves what as a collective a certain gender likes in the opposite gender. And this worked both ways. Women want certain traits in their partners and men compete to show they have those traits, and vice versa. So, Dr. David Buss did a fascinating study in 1989 across 37 cultures that showed what men and women desire in their partners, and surprisingly, our innate desires haven't changed much. Both men and women value intelligence, kindness, mutual attraction, love, good health, and dependability. When it comes to women specifically, they also want resource acquisition capabilities, a slightly older partner, ambition, attentiveness, and for men, men specifically want two other important things in women, which is physical attractiveness and younger women. And it's really fascinating how, even after all these years of evolution, these things still haven't changed. Now, if you think about the dating apps, these two processes, competition and consensus, are facilitated by the apps, with the user aligning on what they find desirable and competing to display those traits. Now that you know the context, here's the question: what consensus are these apps building for us, knowingly or unknowingly? Tell me what you think down in the comments below.